Why do we so often allow others to control our peace of mind? As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, no person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have. Think about that for a moment. In toxic relationships, we find ourselves tangled in expectations, struggling with the actions of others, and losing sight of our own strength. The emotional exhaustion, the constant second-guessing, the feeling of being trapped, it's overwhelming. But what if I told you there's a way to step back, reclaim your power, and find clarity in the chaos? Stoicism, a philosophy practiced for centuries, provides us with practical, timeless tools to navigate these struggles. By focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you cannot, you can begin to break free from the emotional grip of harmful relationships. In this video, we'll explore 10 powerful Stoic practices that can help you regain control of your life and move forward stronger and more grounded than ever. How often have you found yourself reacting out of anger, frustration, or sadness in a toxic relationship, only to regret it later? It's almost as if the other person had a remote control for your emotions, pressing buttons to provoke you whenever they pleased. This is a pattern many of us know all too well. Toxic relationships often thrive on emotional instability. They push us to react impulsively, to escalate the drama, and to lose ourselves in the chaos. But here's the truth: no one has control over your emotions unless you give it to them. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. He reminds us that while we can't always control what others do, we have absolute power over how we respond. This idea may feel challenging at first, especially when someone close to you knows exactly how to provoke you. But realizing that your reaction is your choice, that's a game changer. Imagine this: you're in the middle of an argument with someone you care about deeply. They say something hurtful, something they know will get under your skin. Your first instinct might be to lash out, to defend yourself, or to throw an equally biting comment their way. But what if instead you paused? What if you took a deep breath, reminded yourself that their words are outside of your control, and chose not to engage in the same destructive behavior? That moment of choice is where your power lies. By practicing this principle, you begin to see that your emotions aren't dictated by external forces. You're not at the mercy of the other person's words, moods, or actions. Instead, you become the gatekeeper of your own peace. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending that hurtful behavior is acceptable. It means separating yourself from the immediate emotional reaction and responding in a way that aligns with your values and self-respect. To start, reflect on how often you've handed over your emotional control to someone else. Has their anger dictated your mood? Have their insults shaped your self-worth? Recognizing these moments is the first step to breaking free. The next time you feel provoked, try reminding yourself of Epictetus's words. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Take a breath, take a step back, and ask yourself, do I want to give this person the power to disrupt my peace? This practice isn't about instantly achieving perfect composure. It's a process, and it takes time. You might not get it right every time, and that's okay. The goal is to build the habit of pausing, of reclaiming your power one small step at a time. Each moment you choose your response instead of letting it be chosen for you is a victory. And with every victory, you take back control of your emotional world, freeing yourself from the grasp of toxic relationships. Now, let's build on this foundation with the next practice, strengthening your sense of self. Have you ever walked away from a conversation or interaction feeling completely drained, like your energy and peace were siphoned away against your will? Toxic people have a way of crossing invisible lines, seeping into your mental and emotional space, and leaving you questioning your worth. These violations are subtle at first, a dismissive comment here, an unreasonable demand there, but over time they erode your inner sense of balance. And here's the hard truth: this often happens because we haven't clearly established or enforced boundaries. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us to value what's most precious, our time and energy. He wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to wasting time, they are careless, even though time is the one thing it is proper to be stingy with." This wisdom holds true in relationships as well. By failing to set internal boundaries, we allow others to dictate how much of our time, energy, and emotional well-being they consume, often at our own expense. So, what does it look like to set internal boundaries? At its core, this practice is about recognizing your self-worth and protecting it from those who would take advantage of it. It's about deciding how much access others are allowed to have to your inner world, your thoughts, emotions, and personal time, and making a conscious effort to defend that space. This isn't about putting up walls or becoming cold and unapproachable. It's about building a fence with a gate that only you control. For example, let's say you have someone in your life who constantly unloads their problems on you but never seems to consider your own needs. Maybe they call at all hours or expect you to drop everything to listen to them vent. Over time, this dynamic chips away at your mental energy, leaving you feeling used and frustrated. Setting a boundary here might mean telling them, "I care about you, but I can only talk when I have the time and energy to do so." It could also mean limiting the frequency or length of these interactions. This isn't selfish, it's self-respect. In modern life, setting boundaries often starts with something as simple as saying no. No to plans that don't serve you, no to toxic conversations, and no to people who expect your constant availability. It might also mean limiting contact with individuals who bring more harm than good into your life. For instance, if someone's presence on social media triggers anxiety or resentment, it's okay to unfollow or mute them. Remember, protecting your mental and emotional health is not a betrayal, it's an act of strength. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are there situations or relationships where you've been overly permissive? Where someone else's needs have continually overshadowed your own? Identifying these areas is the first step to change. Write down 1 or 2 boundaries you'd like to set, whether it's limiting how often a toxic person can contact you or deciding to carve out uninterrupted time for yourself each day. Boundaries don't have to be confrontational. In fact, they're often quiet, internal decisions that you enforce consistently, and over time they send a powerful message to others and to yourself that your energy, time, and well-being are valuable. By setting these internal boundaries, you're not only protecting yourself from toxic influences, but you're also making room for healthier, more balanced relationships to flourish. Next, we'll take this concept of self-respect even further by exploring how Stoicism teaches us to strengthen our sense of identity and remain unshaken by external judgments. How much time have you spent replaying someone else's actions in your mind, trying to decode their behavior, wondering if you said the wrong thing, or questioning why they acted a certain way? It's exhausting, isn't it? Toxic relationships, in particular, have a way of pulling us into this mental tug of war, where we pour endless energy into trying to understand or control things that are quite simply out of our hands. This is where the Stoic principle of indifferent things becomes so powerful, a practice that can help us reclaim not just our thoughts but our peace. The Stoics teach us that there are 2 categories of things in life, those within our control and those outside of it. Indifferent things refer to everything external, other people's opinions, actions, or words, the way situations unfold, and even the outcome of our efforts. As Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What Marcus is reminding us is simple yet profound. Anytime we allow external negativity to disturb our inner world, we're handing over control of our happiness to forces beyond our influence. Imagine for a moment that someone criticizes you or spreads false rumors about you. Naturally, your first instinct might be to feel hurt, frustrated, or even defensive. You might find yourself replaying their words over and over, feeling the weight of their judgment. But here's the thing, their words exist entirely outside of your control. You cannot stop them from saying what they've said, nor can you change how they think about you. What you can control, however, is your reaction. Do you dwell on their negativity, or do you let it roll off your shoulders like water? This is the art of indifference, choosing not to react emotionally to things that ultimately do not determine your value or your peace of mind. Practicing this art requires training your mind to discern what truly matters. One practical exercise to help with this is journaling. Each day, take a few minutes to write down the things that bothered you or consumed your thoughts. Then categorize them. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, remind yourself that it falls into the category of indifferent things. This doesn't mean those events or behaviors cease to exist, but it does mean they no longer deserve your energy. Over time, this practice can help you develop an almost instinctive ability to separate what's external from what's internal. Another helpful approach is to let go of unnecessary attachments to others' opinions. So often in toxic relationships, we find ourselves bending over backward to gain approval, avoid criticism, or maintain someone else's affection. But the truth is, their approval, or lack of it, does not define your worth. Practice repeating this phrase to yourself when faced with judgment or criticism. Their opinion is theirs, not mine. This small but powerful reminder reinforces the idea that you control your inner world, not the external noise. Let's be clear, indifference doesn't mean passivity or apathy. It doesn't mean you stop caring about the people in your life or the values you stand for. Instead, it's about protecting your inner peace by not allowing things outside your control to dictate your emotional well-being. It's about prioritizing your energy for what truly matters, your growth, your values, and your ability to live a life of integrity. As you go about your day, try practicing this art of indifference in small ways. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of getting angry, remind yourself that their actions are external. When a toxic person tries to provoke you, pause and ask yourself, does their behavior deserve my energy? By consciously choosing where to focus your attention, you regain control over your emotions and your life. Next, we'll explore how Stoicism can help you reframe pain and challenges as opportunities for growth, further strengthening your ability to thrive in the face of adversity. Are you compromising your integrity to maintain toxic connections? It's a tough question, but one worth asking. So often, in unhealthy relationships, we find ourselves bending who we are to avoid conflict, gain approval, or simply keep the peace. Maybe you've stayed silent when you should have spoken up, or agreed to something you didn't believe in, just to avoid upsetting the other person. But with each compromise, something important slips away: your sense of self, your values, your authenticity. The Stoics, however, offer a powerful antidote: the practice of prioritizing virtue above all else. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, reminds us of this when he writes, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be." Be one. For the Stoics, this idea of being a good person living virtuously was the ultimate goal, the single most important measure of a life well lived. And here's the key: they believed that living in alignment with virtue mattered more than external validation, approval, or even the opinions of those closest to you. So, what does it look like to live virtuously in the context of a toxic relationship? It starts with identifying your core values: honesty, courage, integrity, compassion. and using them as your guide in all interactions. When you prioritize virtue, you stop letting someone else's behavior dictate your own. Instead, you focus on being the kind of person you want to be, no matter how others act or react. This shift puts the power back in your hands. Take honesty, for example. Imagine you're in a situation where a toxic friend or partner is pressuring you to lie on their behalf, maybe to cover up a mistake they made or avoid an uncomfortable truth. It's tempting to go along with it, especially if you fear their anger or the fallout. But compromising your honesty to protect someone else's poor decisions not only erodes your own integrity, it also reinforces the dysfunction in the relationship. Choosing to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is an act of courage and a commitment to living virtuously. Another example is standing up for yourself with grace and respect. Toxic relationships often involve one person dominating the other, whether through manipulation, criticism, or control. It's easy to fall into patterns of compliance, avoiding confrontation for the sake of harmony. But practicing virtue means summoning the courage to set boundaries or express your needs, even if it feels difficult. Courage doesn't mean being harsh or confrontational. It simply means being willing to act in alignment with your values regardless of the response. Living virtuously doesn't just strengthen your integrity, it brings clarity to your relationships. When you stop prioritizing someone else's approval and start prioritizing your values, you create a standard for how you will and won't be treated. You might discover that some toxic behaviors, when met with your newfound authenticity, begin to fall away. Or you might realize that certain relationships are unsustainable because they rely on you compromising who you are. Either way, the result is freedom to live authentically, without the weight of trying to meet someone else's expectations at the expense of your own principles. Now take a moment to reflect. Are there areas in your relationships where you've compromised your integrity to maintain the connection? Have there been times when you ignored your values to avoid conflict, to be liked, or to keep someone else happy? Ask yourself what it would look like to choose virtue instead, to choose honesty, to choose courage, to choose the kind of person you want to be over the fleeting approval of others. This practice is not always easy, but it is always worthwhile. By focusing on virtue, you strengthen your sense of self and reclaim the power to live in alignment with your true values. And that, as the Stoics teach us, is the path to true peace and fulfillment. From here, let's explore how shifting your perspective can turn challenges into opportunities to grow stronger, a mindset the Stoics deeply embodied. Have you ever found yourself trying to fix someone, holding onto the belief that if you just tried a little harder, they would change? Maybe you've told yourself, if I'm more patient, they'll stop being so critical, or if I love them enough, they'll treat me better. It's a narrative many of us fall into, especially in toxic relationships. We pour our time, energy, and emotions into trying to mold someone into the person we wish they could be. But over time, this effort leaves us feeling drained, frustrated, and defeated. Why? Because we're pushing against reality. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus offers profound wisdom on this topic. He said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." In other words, the root of much of our frustration comes from trying to control things that are simply beyond our influence, like someone else's behavior, choices, or willingness to change. When we resist reality, clinging to the idea that we can force someone to be different, we only deepen our own suffering. But if we can learn to accept what we cannot change, we free ourselves from this exhausting cycle and create space for peace and growth. Think of it this way: toxic relationships are often like trying to row a boat against the current. No matter how strong or persistent you are, the flow of the water remains outside of your control. You can exhaust yourself fighting it, or you can accept the current for what it is and redirect your energy toward navigating your own path forward. acceptance doesn't mean condoning bad behavior or staying in harmful situations. It means acknowledging reality as it is instead of how you wish it to be, and responding in a way that aligns with your well-being and values. So, how do we practice this kind of acceptance in real life? It starts with awareness. Take a moment to reflect. What have you been resisting in your relationships? Is there a situation, a behavior, or a reality you've been unwilling to face? Maybe it's the fact that someone close to you consistently disregards your boundaries. Or perhaps it's the truth that no amount of effort on your part will make them offer the love or respect you deserve. Identifying these moments of resistance is the first step toward letting them go. Once you've pinpointed what's outside your control, the next step is redirecting your focus inward, toward what is within your power, your own growth, choices, and actions. Mindfulness is an invaluable tool here. Practicing mindfulness allows you to observe your thoughts and feelings without becoming overly attached to them. For example, when frustration arises because someone isn't changing despite your efforts, mindfulness helps you step back and acknowledge, I feel frustrated because I'm trying to control something I can't. This simple act of observation can bring clarity and calm, allowing you to release the struggle. Another practical approach is using affirmations to reinforce acceptance. When you catch yourself resisting reality, try repeating phrases like, I release what I cannot control, or I focus my energy on what is within my power. These reminders may feel small, but over time they can help rewire your mindset, shifting you away from resistance and toward acceptance. Remember, acceptance is not about giving up, it's about reclaiming your energy and choosing where to invest it. Instead of pouring all your effort into fixing someone else, what if you directed that energy into bettering yourself? What if you used it to strengthen your boundaries, pursue your passions, or nurture relationships that uplift you? Acceptance isn't easy, especially when it comes to letting go of the hope that someone might change, but it's a practice that can transform your life. By embracing what's outside your control, you stop fighting battles you were never meant to win, and you start building a life of clarity, purpose, and peace. Take a moment now and ask yourself, what have you been resisting? What would it feel like to finally let that go? By making this shift, you're not just stepping out of a toxic cycle, you're stepping into a version of yourself that's grounded, resilient, and free. Next, we'll explore how embracing these challenges can actually make you stronger and more capable, turning pain into a source of personal growth. Imagine you're in a situation where someone you care deeply about says something hurtful. Maybe it's a cutting comment or an unfair accusation. Your heart starts to race, your mind spins with responses, and before you know it, you're either arguing back or retreating into a spiral of hurt feelings. Later, as the dust settles, you replay the event in your mind, asking yourself why you let their words affect you so much, or worse, why this keeps happening time and time again. This is the power unchecked emotions can have over us. When we allow ourselves to be fully tethered to external events or relationships, our emotional state becomes a roller coaster determined by someone else's actions. The Stoics understood this dynamic well and offered a powerful practice to counter it: emotional detachment. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or emotionally distancing yourself from others to the point of apathy. Instead, it's about creating enough space between you and the events around you so your emotions no longer dictate your actions or sense of self-worth. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote about this in his letters when he said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can get the better of my free will." What he meant was that external circumstances, and by extension, the behavior of others, have no power over your inner state unless you allow them to. It's your reactions, not the events themselves, that determine your emotional turmoil or tranquility. Think about how this applies to toxic relationships. When someone you care about mistreats you or dismisses your feelings, the knee-jerk reaction is often emotional: anger, sadness, or anxiety. These feelings are completely natural. But when we attach our emotional well-being to how others behave, we're surrendering our inner peace to forces beyond our control. Practicing emotional detachment allows you to break free from this cycle and reclaim your equilibrium. So how do you begin cultivating this skill? Start by reflecting daily on what truly influences your happiness. At the end of each day, take a few quiet moments and ask yourself, what upset me today and why? Then peel back the layers. Did a sharp comment from someone make you question your self-worth? Did someone's indifference make you feel insecure? Recognize these reactions for what they are: emotional attachments to circumstances you cannot control. Acknowledge them, but don't let them define your peace. Another exercise is to imagine yourself as an observer of your own life. When a situation arises that would usually trigger an emotional response, take a mental step back. Pretend you're watching the event unfold from a distance, as if you're an outsider. What do you see? Often, when viewed from this detached perspective, the situation loses its intensity, and you can choose a response that aligns with logic and your values rather than emotion. It's also worth reflecting on the nature of attachments. Seneca warned about the dangers of excessive attachment, saying that it clouds judgment and leaves us vulnerable to unnecessary suffering. In toxic relationships, this attachment often manifests as a fear of loss or rejection, convincing us to hold on long after the relationship has turned harmful. Detaching doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're no longer emotionally dependent on the other person's actions for your happiness. For example, if someone in your life continues to criticize you, instead of internalizing their words and feeling wounded, remind yourself that their perspective is theirs, not yours. Their negativity stems from their own struggles or insecurities, not a reflection of your worth. Emotional detachment gives you the strength to separate their behavior from your sense of peace and self-respect. This practice isn't about suppressing emotions, but rather understanding them. By learning to observe your feelings without letting them control your actions, you build emotional resilience. Over time, you'll notice that the same situations that once left you spiraling now feel more manageable, even insignificant. Toxic behaviors lose their grip on you. Take a moment to assess: how often have your emotions overridden logic in difficult situations? How many times have you made decisions based on hurt, fear, or anger, only to realize later that they didn't serve you? By practicing emotional detachment, you'll not only protect your peace but also gain clarity and strength to navigate relationships with far more purpose and confidence. Next, we'll explore how focusing on gratitude can help shift your mindset from dwelling on toxicity to celebrating the positive aspects of your life, fostering resilience and healing. Have you ever had one of those moments when you look back on a situation and think, "Why did I let that happen again?" It's as if you're stuck in a loop, tolerating behavior you know isn't right, yet struggling to break free from the pattern. This is the power of habit, unconscious actions and reactions that keep us entangled in toxic dynamics. But here's the good news: there's a tool that can help you uncover these patterns and, most importantly, start changing them. That tool is self-reflection, a practice central to Stoic philosophy, and one that Marcus Aurelius himself used daily to hold himself accountable. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history and a devoted Stoic, filled his personal journal with reflections on his thoughts, actions, and values. His *meditations*, originally private notes to himself, are filled with reminders and insights like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He used this practice of self-reflection not just to analyze his own behavior, but also to ensure that he was living in line with his values, no matter the challenges he faced. This same approach can be an invaluable tool when navigating a toxic relationship. Self-reflection offers a way to step out of the emotional fog that toxic dynamics often create. Instead of reacting impulsively or feeling overwhelmed, it allows you to take a step back, observe what's happening, and identify areas where you might be unintentionally enabling harmful behavior. For example, maybe you've realized that you always say yes to someone who constantly takes advantage of your kindness, or you notice a pattern of apologizing when you've done nothing wrong just to avoid conflict. These are the kinds of insights that come from self-reflection, and they're the first step toward change. One simple but powerful method of self-reflection is journaling. At the end of each day, set aside a few quiet moments to write about the events that stood out to you. Focus on interactions that left you feeling unsettled or drained. Ask yourself questions like, what did I tolerate today that went against my values? Or, how did I respond to negativity, and was it in a way that I'm proud of? These prompts encourage you to examine your role in the relationship with honesty and compassion without judgment. The goal isn't to criticize yourself, but to bring awareness to actions and choices that may no longer serve you. Let's say you write about a situation where a friend or partner dismissed your feelings. Maybe they made a sarcastic comment when you tried to express something important. Through journaling, you might realize that this isn't the first time this has happened, and that you've often responded by brushing it off to avoid confrontation. This pattern might be a signal that it's time to address the issue directly or set boundaries moving forward. Journaling helps you connect these dots and gives you the clarity and courage to take meaningful action. For those who prefer a more meditative approach, self-reflection can also happen mentally. Set aside 5 to 10 minutes at the end of your day to close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and mentally replay your interactions. What moments stand out? Did you act in alignment with your values, or did you compromise them to keep the peace? Use this time to identify areas where you showed strength and areas where you'd like to grow. Self-reflection isn't just about identifying the negative. It's also a chance to acknowledge the positive steps you've taken. Maybe you held firm to a boundary, spoke up for yourself, or recognized an unhealthy pattern before it escalated. Celebrate those moments. They're evidence of your growth and resilience. This practice of examining your day isn't meant to weigh you down, it's meant to empower you. The more clarity you have about your actions and choices, the more intentional you become in shaping healthier relationships moving forward. Self-reflection transforms passive cycles into purposeful change. So tonight, grab a journal or carve out some quiet mental space and ask yourself, what did I tolerate today that didn't align with my values? What could I do differently tomorrow? By committing to this practice, you take an essential step toward breaking the patterns that hold you back and creating a life filled with stronger boundaries, deeper self-respect, and lasting peace. Next, we'll dive into the importance of finding purpose beyond your relationships and how cultivating a personal mission can anchor you in moments of doubt and chaos. Toxic relationships have a way of drawing us into an endless spiral of frustration and helplessness. They drain our energy, scatter our focus, and often leave us obsessing over things completely outside our control, like how someone else might act, react, or change. It's exhausting, isn't it? All that effort, all that mental energy poured into situations you can't actually influence. The truth is, when we spend so much time and attention on people or circumstances we can't control, we lose sight of the one thing we can control ourselves. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them." And central to his teachings is the idea of the circle of control, the distinction between what lies within our power and what does not. According to Epictetus, our thoughts, actions, choices, and attitudes are within our control. Everything else, other people's opinions, behaviors, or even external outcomes, falls outside of it. Thriving, then, comes from focusing on what is within us, on developing mastery over our actions and decisions, while letting go of the futile effort to control external factors. In the context of a toxic relationship, this principle becomes incredibly freeing. Instead of trying to appease, fix, or change the toxic person in your life, you redirect that energy toward yourself, toward your own growth, health, and happiness. Imagine this shift. Instead of feeling powerless in the face of someone else's behavior, you start feeling powerful because you're actively improving what truly matters, your own well-being. So, how do you begin strengthening your circle of control? Start by identifying areas where your energy is being wasted on things you can't change. Are you constantly replaying arguments in your mind, imagining scenarios where you could have said the perfect comeback? Are you trying to predict or manage someone else's moods, walking on eggshells to avoid conflict? These are clear signs that your energy is spilling outside your circle of control. Once you've recognized these patterns, the next step is to consciously redirect that energy toward areas within your influence. For example, set a personal goal that excites you. Maybe it's starting a new fitness routine, learning a creative skill, or taking up an old hobby you've neglected. These pursuits not only shift your focus inward, but also remind you of your capability and autonomy, things that often feel diminished in the shadow of a toxic relationship. Let's say you decide to pick up journaling, a healthy habit that improves mental clarity. Instead of ruminating on a toxic interaction, use your journal to explore your thoughts, reflect on your progress, or envision the kind of person you want to become. Or maybe you decide to focus on your physical health, channeling frustration into movement by taking a daily walk or trying a new workout class. As you build these habits, you'll notice your energy shifting from what you can't control to what you can, and that shift is incredibly empowering. Reducing interaction with toxic individuals is another crucial step. This doesn't necessarily mean cutting people off completely, especially in situations where that's not immediately possible. But it does mean setting boundaries that protect your time and energy. If daily interactions with someone leave you feeling drained, minimize contact where you can. Maybe that means limiting your conversations to necessary topics or taking more time for yourself to recharge after encountering them. Every step you take to reclaim your boundaries strengthens your circle of control. One particularly helpful strategy is reframing challenges as opportunities for growth. For instance, instead of seeing a toxic relationship solely as a source of pain, view it as an opportunity to practice patience, strengthen your resilience, or refine your ability to focus on what truly matters. Each time you pull your energy back from trying to change someone else and redirect it toward bettering yourself, you're reinforcing this mindset. Ultimately, strengthening your circle of control isn't just about surviving toxic dynamics, it's about thriving beyond them. The more you focus on your personal growth, health, and skills, the more fulfilled and independent you become. And as you grow stronger in these areas, toxic behaviors from others begin to lose their power over you. You'll find yourself standing firm, unshaken by the chaos around you, because your energy is rooted where it belongs, in building the best version of yourself. Now, take a moment to consider, what could you accomplish if you redirected the energy wasted on toxic relationships towards something that truly matters to you? The answer to that question holds the key to your freedom. We'll now dive into how identifying and embracing your sense of purpose can further empower you to break free and move forward with clarity and confidence. Have you ever held on to something so tightly, even though deep down you knew it was slipping away? Maybe it was a relationship that felt comfortable but had long stopped being healthy. Or perhaps it was the fear of letting go that kept you clinging, the thought of change feeling far more painful than staying in place. For many of us, the fear of loss is one of the greatest barriers to breaking free from toxic relationships. But the Stoics offer us a groundbreaking perspective, one that can empower us to embrace change rather than fear it. They teach us to recognize and accept the impermanence of all things. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, wrote, "No man has been promised a tomorrow." This simple yet profound truth reminds us that life is fleeting, and the things we cling to, people, possessions, even pain, are not ours to hold forever. Clinging to what no longer serves us, whether it's a toxic relationship or an outdated version of ourselves, doesn't change this reality. If anything, it only prolongs our suffering. The Stoics encourage us to reflect regularly on the impermanence of life, not as a morbid exercise, but as a way to free ourselves from unnecessary attachment and to value what truly matters. Consider this: if you were to view every relationship, every moment, with the awareness that it is temporary, how might that change the way you approach it? This mindset doesn't diminish the importance of your bonds with others. Instead, it gives you the wisdom to cherish healthy relationships while also having the strength to walk away from toxic ones when their time is up. Perhaps you've been holding on to a relationship not because it brings you joy, but because you're afraid of what life might look like without it. Yet, the Stoics would remind you that everything in life is in flux. People grow, circumstances change, and holding on to something that's no longer aligned with your values or happiness only keeps you stuck in the past. Imagine a tree in autumn, its leaves vibrant and full of life. But as winter approaches, those leaves begin to fall. Would we expect the tree to cling to its leaves in defiance of nature? Of course not. We understand that the leaves must fall to make way for new growth in the spring. The same is true for our lives. By letting go of what no longer serves us, we create space for new opportunities, healthier connections, and personal growth. Clinging to what is fleeting doesn't stop it from fading. It only holds us back from moving forward. So how can you begin to embrace this principle? Start by reflecting on what you might be holding onto out of fear. Is it the comfort of familiarity, even though the relationship drains you? Is it the hope that someone will change, even though their actions consistently show otherwise? Ask yourself, what am I afraid to let go of, and why? Awareness of these fears is a powerful first step. The next step is acknowledging that letting go doesn't mean failure. It means accepting reality and choosing your well-being over fear. For example, perhaps you've been hesitant to leave a friendship where you're constantly belittled or dismissed. Part of you might think, but we've known each other for so long, or what if I don't have anyone else? The thought of losing that connection can feel overwhelming. But when you remind yourself of life's impermanence, you begin to see that holding onto something harmful only prevents you from discovering healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Letting go isn't losing, it's making way for something better. The beauty of embracing impermanence is that it helps us shift our focus. Instead of fearing what we might lose, we can start appreciating the lessons we've gained. Maybe that toxic relationship taught you about boundaries or gave you the strength to stand up for yourself. When we see each experience as a chapter, not the entire book, we begin to approach life with greater perspective and resilience. So take a moment to think about this. What are you holding onto simply because letting go feels too difficult? What would happen if, instead of clinging, you trusted that life's natural flow could bring something better into your path? By embracing impermanence, you're not just letting go, you're stepping forward into a life of freedom and possibility. Next, we'll explore how this practice ties into cultivating patience and trust in the process of healing and growth, even when progress feels slow. Have you ever thought about how the toughest moments in life often shape us in ways we never anticipated? It's usually in hindsight, after the storm has passed, that we realize how much stronger we've become because of the struggles we've faced. Toxic relationships, while painful and draining, can be some of life's greatest tests. But here's the thing, as difficult as they are, they also hold the potential to be powerful teachers if we're willing to learn from them. Let me share a story to put this into perspective. There was once a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors came to console him, saying, "What bad luck." But the farmer simply shrugged and said, "Maybe." A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it a whole herd of wild horses. The neighbors called it a stroke of great fortune, to which the farmer again said, "Maybe." Then, while one of the wild horses was being broken in, the farmer's son fell and broke his leg. "Such terrible luck," his neighbors said. Again, the farmer replied, "Maybe." Soon after, the army came to their village to recruit young men for war, but the farmer's son was spared because of his injury. What seemed like misfortune turned out to be a blessing in disguise. The point of this story: life's adversities aren't always what they seem. What feels unbearable in the moment often carries the seeds of growth and transformation. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, echoed this wisdom when he said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacles we face aren't just things to get through or avoid, they are, in fact, opportunities for growth. Toxic relationships are no exception. They challenge us deeply, testing our patience, our boundaries, our self-worth, but in doing so, they also offer us the chance to develop resilience, wisdom, and clarity about who we are and what we deserve. Take a moment to think about a toxic relationship you've experienced. Maybe it was with a friend who constantly took advantage of your kindness, or a partner who undermined your confidence. At the time, the pain may have felt overwhelming. But now, looking back, what have you gained from that experience? Perhaps it taught you the importance of setting boundaries and saying no when something doesn't feel right. Maybe it gave you the strength to walk away from something unhealthy, even when it was hard. Or it could have awakened a deeper understanding of your self-worth, showing you that you deserve better than what you've been accepting. This process of reframing past challenges as lessons is a key Stoic practice. Instead of seeing hardships as mere suffering, the Stoics teach us to ask, "What can I learn from this? How can this experience make me stronger or wiser?" Toxic relationships, while painful, often reveal where we need to grow. They might expose a lack of boundaries, an over-reliance on external validation, or a tendency to ignore red flags. By facing these patterns head-on, we gain the tools to avoid repeating them in the future. One way to start this reframing process is through reflective journaling. Write down a challenge you faced in a toxic relationship, something specific that hurt you or made you feel stuck. Then ask yourself, how did I grow because of this? What strengths did I discover in myself? For example, maybe the experience taught you to trust your instincts or to value the relationships that uplift you rather than drain you. By focusing on these lessons, you begin to shift the narrative from one of pain to one of growth. Another approach is to think of adversity as building a mental muscle. Just like lifting weights at the gym strengthens your physical body, enduring and overcoming challenges strengthens your mental and emotional resilience. The next time you face a difficult situation, you'll find yourself better equipped to handle it, not because life has magically become easier, but because you have become stronger. So, as you reflect on the challenges you've faced in toxic relationships, ask yourself, how have these experiences shaped me for the better? What lessons have I learned, and how can I use them to move forward with greater clarity and purpose? By seeing adversity not as a punishment but as a path to growth, you transform obstacles into stepping stones, and that is where true resilience is born. Now, as you move forward, carry this thought with you. Every challenge holds the potential to make you stronger. It's not about avoiding struggle, it's about using it to become the person you are meant to be. Breaking free from toxic relationships is no easy journey, but as we've explored, Stoicism offers us a powerful toolkit to navigate this challenge with strength, clarity, and purpose. Let's quickly recap the 10 transformative practices we've covered. First, we learned the importance of taking control of our emotions, recognizing that it's not what others do to us, but how we respond that truly matters. Next, we embraced the power of setting clear boundaries to protect our energy and self-respect. We discussed strengthening our sense of self, anchoring our identity in our own values rather than the opinions of others. We explored how to release the illusion of control over other people's actions, practicing the art of acceptance. From there, we shifted to reframing adversity, understanding that even toxic experiences can be opportunities for growth. We learned the value of emotional detachment, creating space between ourselves and external chaos. Self-reflection became our ally, helping us identify unhealthy patterns and enabling us to act with greater intention. We explored the Stoic lesson of focusing on our circle of control, pouring our energy into what we can change ourselves. We embraced the concept of impermanence, letting go of what no longer serves us, and finally, we saw how every challenge, even the most painful ones, has the potential to make us stronger. These practices are not just philosophical ideas, they are actionable steps that, when applied, can lead to profound transformation. They teach us to let go of what we cannot change, to stand confidently in our own values, and to build resilience so that we can face life's challenges with grace. By adopting these principles, you are equipped not only to move on from toxic relationships, but also to foster emotional peace, self-respect, and a renewed sense of freedom. As you reflect on these 10 practices, ask yourself, which one resonates with you the most right now? Maybe it's setting boundaries, standing up for your self-worth in a relationship where it's been overlooked. Or perhaps it's practicing emotional detachment, learning to respond deliberately instead of reacting impulsively. Wherever you choose to begin, you're taking a step toward reclaiming your power and finding clarity in the chaos. Remember, this is a journey, one that takes time and patience, but as the Stoics remind us, the effort is worth it. Seneca once said, "It does not matter what you bear, but how you bear it." Let this be your encouragement. No matter how heavy the burden of a toxic relationship may feel, your ability to carry it and ultimately to set it down rests within you. You have the strength and the wisdom to rise above, to heal, and to build a future grounded in peace and self-respect. I'd love to hear from you. Which practice will you focus on first? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight might inspire someone else on the same path. And if you found these Stoic principles helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights like these. Together, let's build a community of resilience, wisdom, and empowerment. You're stronger than you think, and the journey to a healthier, freer life begins with the first step. So take it, you've got